At 6:12 that evening, 18 minutes before the county planned to close the mountain road, Eli Mercer found a purple child's backpack on the floor of his empty shuttle. Snow hammered the open door hard enough to sting his face. The last guests had been ordered out of Calder Ridge Lodge. The parking loop was nearly empty. Beyond the headlights, the road disappeared into a white wall. Eli reached down and picked up the backpack. It was warm. Not room temperature warm, body warm. Someone had been carrying it only minutes earlier. Behind him, Dana Voss, the lodge manager, hurried through the snow with Eli's 10-year-old daughter Lucy at her side. Dana shouted over the wind, "Eli, we have to go. Now." He looked toward the road, then toward the backpack. Lucy understood the decision before he said anything. Her face changed. The county closure meant that if Eli drove uphill again, he might not be allowed back down. And if he missed the final evacuation window, Lucy would have to leave without him. That was not the only clock running. At 9 the next morning, Eli was supposed to appear at a custody review that could decide whether Lucy stayed with him in the mountains or moved 300 miles away to live with her maternal grandmother. He had promised Lucy he would be there. He had promised everyone. Dana grabbed the shuttle door. "The manifest is clear. Every guest is accounted for." Eli looked again at the little backpack. Snow had already begun collecting on the straps, but the fabric against his palm was still warm. Then who carried this? Dana had no answer. Eli climbed into the driver's seat. Lucy stepped forward. For one terrible second, he thought she was going to ask him not to go. Instead, she put one hand against the open door and looked straight at him. "Dad." He waited. "Come back." Eli closed the door. Then he turned the shuttle away from the evacuation road and drove directly into the blizzard. 4 hours earlier, Calder Ridge had still looked like a place people came to forget the rest of the world. The lodge sat high above a narrow mountain town, surrounded by dark firs and white slopes. Families crossed the stone terrace carrying skis. Children dragged plastic sleds behind them. Through tall lobby windows, the late afternoon sky looked gray but harmless. Eli knew better. He had been driving mountain roads for 11 winters. He knew the difference between snow that softened a landscape and snow that erased it. At 2 that afternoon, he stood beside Shuttle 4 while Lucy sat in the front passenger seat doing math homework. She was small for 10, serious when she concentrated, with the same dark eyes her mother had carried. Eli watched the wind lift loose powder from the parking lot. Lucy did not look up from her worksheet. "You're doing the weather face." Eli glanced at her. "What weather face?" "The one where your eyebrows get married." That almost made him smile. Almost. His phone had already received 2 alerts. The first warned of rapidly falling temperatures. The second announced that avalanche control might shut the upper road after sunset. Eli had planned to finish his shift early, drive Lucy home, iron the one decent shirt he owned, and leave before dawn for the custody review. Nothing about that plan involved a rescue. Nothing about it involved Calder Ridge losing power. And nothing involved the Bell family. Eli first noticed them near the rental entrance. A woman in a red winter jacket was kneeling in front of 2 children. The older child, a boy around 11, was trying to act annoyed while still listening carefully. His younger sister wore a purple backpack covered with tiny silver stars. The mother adjusted the girl's hood and made both children look at her. Eli could not hear every word through the wind. He heard only the end. "Stay together. Find a place people will check. Make it easy to be found." The boy rolled his eyes in the dramatic way children did when they had heard the same lesson many times. The mother tapped his chest. He stopped rolling his eyes. Eli looked away. Parents repeated strange things after they had once been scared badly enough. He understood that. Lucy's mother, Claire, had died 4 years earlier after a fast-moving illness that turned weeks into days. Since then, Eli had become a man who checked batteries twice, fuel gauges 3 times, and Lucy's bedroom door once every night before sleeping. Fear changed people. Sometimes it made them controlling. Sometimes it made them careful. Sometimes those were the same thing. At 3:20, the weather changed. The ridge vanished first, then the far ski lift, then half the parking lot. The front desk began calling rooms. Guests who had driven themselves were told not to attempt the mountain road. Resort shuttles would take everyone down in controlled groups before the county closure. Dana moved through the lobby with a radio pressed to her ear. She had managed Calder Ridge for 6 years and almost never raised her voice. That afternoon, she did. Drivers to the south entrance, maintenance to generator check, front desk, print physical guest lists. Eli heard that last instruction. It mattered later. At the time, it sounded ordinary. By 4 o'clock, the lodge had become an evacuation center. Suitcases filled the lobby. Children cried because vacations were ending. Adults complained because adults often mistook inconvenience for emergency until the emergency became undeniable. Eli drove his first load down at 4:10. 22 passengers. His second load left at 4:43. 19 passengers and a dog. The road was worse when he returned. Snowdrifts had formed along the switchbacks. County plows were working below the lodge, but visibility was shrinking by the minute. At 5:15, Dana told Eli Shuttle 4 would make one final trip. Lucy was waiting beside the lobby fireplace with a coat folded under her. "You're coming on this one?" she asked. "That's the plan." She studied him. Lucy had learned not to trust plans made during storms. Across the lobby, Eli saw the Bell children again. The older boy was Owen. The younger girl was Nora. Their mother, Rachel Bell, was speaking with a front desk clerk while staring toward the ski entrance. Rachel's expression bothered Eli. Not panic, calculation. She asked the clerk a question. The clerk shook her head. Rachel looked toward the windows, then toward her children, then back toward the ski entrance. A few minutes later, the lights flickered. The entire lobby went black. People screamed. Emergency lighting came on almost immediately, but the power interruptions scrambled card readers, reservation terminals, and the digital evacuation board. The backup generator started 30 seconds later. The system rebooted, and in those 30 seconds, something important disappeared. Not a person, a status. When the front desk screen returned, several occupied rooms were still marked occupied. The Bell room was not. Room 314 showed cleared. At 5:34, Eli loaded his final passengers. Dana stood outside, checking names against a printed sheet. Snow blew across the paper. People shouted. Radios overlapped. Someone reported a stalled sedan below switchback 7. Another driver called in a branch across the service road. Lucy sat in the front seat of Shuttle 4. Eli counted passengers twice. Dana counted once. Then she received a radio call and stepped away. Eli saw Rachel Bell near the lodge doors. He saw Owen beside her. He saw Nora's purple backpack. And then a maintenance cart blocked his view. That was the last moment he could later remember seeing the 3 Bells together. At 5:40, Dana sent Shuttle 4 down. Halfway to the first switchback, a county vehicle met them coming uphill. The officer leaned from his window. "Last run. Road closes at 6:30. Ellie nodded. The officer looked toward the ridge. "Don't get stuck up there." Ellie did not intend to. At the lower transfer station, passengers moved onto county buses. Lucy stepped out and waited for Eli. He told her they had to return once more because Dana and 2 employees were still at the lodge. Lucy groaned. "You said final trip." "I know. That was a fake final trip." It became less final. She gave him the look children reserved for adults who abused language. Then she climbed back in. At 6 o'clock, Shuttle 4 reached Calder Ridge again. The lodge looked abandoned. Dana and 1 maintenance worker were carrying emergency cases toward a truck. The other shuttle had already left. Eli parked. Lucy got out. Dana waved them toward her vehicle. "Leave the shuttle. We're done." Ellie opened the side door to check that no luggage had been left behind. The passenger compartment was empty. Almost. Under the second bench sat a purple backpack with silver stars. Eli stared at it. He remembered Nora Bell wearing it. He stepped inside, picked it up, felt the warmth, and suddenly the empty lodge did not feel empty anymore. That was how Eli Mercer reached the decision that would threaten his job, his custody case, and possibly his life. Not because he knew a child was missing, because everyone else believed no child was missing, and 1 warm backpack said they were wrong. 2 quarters, escalation. Dana blocked the shuttle with her body. Eli lowered the window. "Move. The guest list says clear. The backpack says otherwise." The system was checked. The system lost power. Dana looked toward the lodge. For the first time that evening, uncertainty broke through her authority. Lucy stood beside Dana's truck, snow collecting on her hood. Eli could see fear in his daughter's face. That nearly stopped him. Nearly. Then Dana grabbed her radio and called the county evacuation coordinator. No answer. She tried again. Static. The storm had begun swallowing radio coverage along the upper ridge. Eli looked at the clock. 6:14. 16 minutes before road closure. Dana finally stepped aside. "I'm taking Lucy down." Eli nodded. "If I'm not at the transfer station." "I know." Dana's expression hardened. "And if there's nobody up there, you just threw away your last safe exit." Eli looked at the backpack beside him. "Then I'll be wrong." He drove uphill. The first place he checked was room 314. The hallway lights were running on generator power. Most room doors stood open after staff inspections. 314 was closed. Eli used the emergency master key Dana had left in Shuttle 4. Inside, the room looked empty at first. Beds unmade. Closet open. No luggage. Bathroom clear. Then Eli noticed two things: a child's wet mitten beneath a chair, and a plastic medicine organizer on the bathroom counter. He did not know whose medicine it was. He only knew that families leaving during emergency evacuation did not usually abandon medication. He radioed Dana. This time, she answered. "I'm in 314. Eli, the road." The room wasn't cleared properly. Silence. He described the mitten and medicine organizer. Dana swore quietly. Then she said something that changed the search. The Bell family was marked on Shuttle 2. Eli stopped. "What?" "Boarded at 5:36. 3 passengers, Rachel, Owen, Nora. Shuttle 2 left before 5:30. Another silence. Dana checked something. "You're sure?" "I watched it leave." Shuttle 2 had departed while Eli was loading his own vehicle. If the digital system showed the Bells aboard after it had already gone, the record was impossible. That was the first real crack in the evacuation. The system had not merely failed to track them. It had created an answer. A false answer. Eli returned to the lobby. The front desk computers were still running. He had no idea how to investigate software. He did not need to. A printed guest list lay on the counter beneath a paperweight. Room 314 had 3 handwritten check marks beside it. Then a line through those marks. Next to the line, someone had written, Bus 2. No initials. No driver confirmation. No time. Someone had converted an assumption into a fact. Eli remembered the blackout, the shouting, the pressure to clear floors quickly. He imagined a clerk seeing a family near the exit, assuming they boarded, and marking the room done. Nothing criminal, nothing dramatic. Just a mistake made at the worst possible moment. Eli radioed Dana again. "Tell County Search, we have 3 potentially missing guests." Dana did not respond immediately. When she did, her voice was lower. "County says all rescue teams are staged below the avalanche gate. Nobody comes up until patrol clears the ridge." "How long?" "They don't know." Eli looked outside. Waiting was not neutral. Not in a blizzard. He searched the ski entrance. The outer doors had been locked, but a side service door was not fully latched. Snow had blown inside. A trail of powder stretched across the rubber floor. Beyond the door lay the employee service road leading toward rental sheds, maintenance buildings, and an old warming hut once used by beginner ski groups. Eli knew that road. He had driven supplies along it in good weather. Tonight it was barely visible. He returned to Shuttle 4. The vehicle was not designed for deep snow, but the first half-mile of service road was plowed regularly. Eli set the purple backpack on the passenger seat. For the second time that night, it became something different. At first, it had been a mystery. Now it was evidence. Someone from room 314 had been near Shuttle 4 after the evacuation confusion. Someone small enough to carry silver stars. At 6:31, the county closed the mountain road. Eli heard the announcement over radio while driving away from the lodge. His safe exit was gone. Down below, Lucy sat in Dana's truck at the barricade. She watched the red county gate swing across the road. Her father was on the other side. Dana tried to call him. Nothing. Lucy stared through the windshield. "Is he in trouble?" Dana chose her words carefully. He made a difficult decision. Lucy looked at her. "That means yes." Dana almost smiled. Then she noticed something on the printed evacuation list resting between the seats. The handwritten marks for room 314. She stared at them. She remembered who had written them. Not a clerk. Dana herself. During the blackout, a front desk employee had asked whether the third floor could be cleared. Dana had looked toward the lobby, seen Rachel Bell standing near the departure line, and said yes. Later, when the system rebooted, someone had transferred Dana's verbal clearance into the passenger record. Dana had been so certain the Bells were leaving that she had never verified the bus. The mistake belonged to the system, but part of it belonged to her. Dana opened the truck door. A county deputy approached. "Ma'am, stay in the vehicle. I need to speak to command. Roads closed. I'm not asking to go up." She held out the list. "I'm telling you why someone has to." Above them, Eli reached the first service junction. The tire tracks disappeared. Fresh snow covered everything within minutes. He stopped and listened. Nothing. No voices. No engines. He checked the rental shed. Empty. The maintenance garage. Empty. At the old beginner lift, wind shook the empty chairs on the cable. Eli called out, "Owen!" Nothing. "Nora!" The storm answered. He returned to the shuttle. For the first time since turning back, doubt hit him hard. Maybe Dana had been right. Maybe the backpack had been left before the family boarded another vehicle. Maybe the medicine was old. Maybe the mitten had been forgotten. Maybe he had chosen a story because he needed there to be a reason for risking everything. His phone showed no service. The custody review was 14 hours away. Lucy was below the gate without him. Eli put both hands on the steering wheel. Then he noticed the backpack again. One shoulder strap was damp. The other was almost dry. That difference mattered. If the pack had been sitting in the shuttle for an hour, both straps would have cooled evenly. But one side had been pressed against a warm body beneath a coat. Recently, Eli lifted it. There was a small, transparent card holder sewn into the back. Inside was an emergency contact card. Rachel Bell. 2 phone numbers. A home address. And beneath them, written in blue marker, "If separated, stay together. Get shelter. Leave a sign where people will look." Eli read it twice. He remembered Rachel kneeling in front of her children. Make it easy to be found. A thought came to him. The backpack was not proof Nora had accidentally missed the evacuation. It might not have been forgotten at all. Ellie drove back toward the lodge parking loop. He parked where Shuttle 4 had stood. Then he imagined being a child in a blackout. Adults shouting, mother missing, snow getting worse. You need shelter. You need to leave a sign where people will look. A shuttle. A driver checks his vehicle before leaving. Nora had chosen the backpack because it was visible, because it belonged to her, because someone would recognize it. The backpack had never been lost. It had been placed. That meant Nora had been thinking clearly, and if she had followed the first 2 rules as carefully as the third, she and Owen would have stayed together and found shelter. Eli looked toward the service road, the old warming hut. He had checked the road near it. He had not checked inside. The warming hut sat beyond a snowbank at the edge of the beginner trail. The shuttle could not reach it. Eli parked as close as he safely could and continued on foot along the marked access path. Wind pushed him sideways. He shouted the children's names. At first, there was nothing. Then he heard a sound so faint he thought it was part of the storm. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Eli moved toward the hut. 3 knocks again. He pulled the door. It was blocked from inside. "Owen?" a child's voice answered. "Who are you?" "My name is Eli. I drive the lodge shuttle." Silence. Then another voice. "A little girl. Did you find my backpack?" Eli closed his eyes for half a second. Yes. The door moved. Owen had pushed a wooden bench against it to keep wind from forcing it open. Inside, the hut was freezing but sheltered. Nora sat, wrapped in 2 old emergency blankets. Owen wore his coat over both of them. They were cold, scared, alive. Eli crouched in front of them. "Where's your mom?" Neither child answered. The relief left his body. Owen looked toward Nora. Nora started crying, not loudly, the exhausted crying of a child who had spent too long trying not to. Owen finally spoke. "She told us to come here." "Where did she go?" "There was a man." Ellie felt the story shift again. "What man?" Someone got hurt near the lower service bridge. Owen swallowed. Mom went to help him. Rachel Bell had not lost her children. She had sent them to shelter. And then she had gone back into the storm for someone else. Eli looked at Nora. "Why did you leave your backpack in my shuttle?" Nora wiped her face with the emergency blanket. "Mom says if grown-ups are looking in the wrong place, leave something in the place. They'll check." Eli stared at the child. A decision made by an 8-year-old had pulled him off the evacuation road. A mother's lesson had worked, but only halfway, because now Eli knew where the children were, and the person who taught them how to be found was still missing. 3/4, revelation and consequence. Ellie brought Owen and Nora back to the shuttle. He turned the heater high and wrapped them in every blanket stored beneath the rear bench. The county radio finally caught a signal. Dana's voice came through first. "Ellie?" He grabbed the handset. "I have the children." For several seconds, Dana could not speak. Then professional instinct returned. Condition? Cold, alert, no obvious injuries. And Rachel? Still out. Eli explained what Owen had told him. There had been an injured man near the lower service bridge. Rachel had sent the children to the warming hut and gone back. Dana relayed the information to County Command. The response arrived quickly. Too quickly. No team could reach the upper service road until Avalanche Patrol reopened access. Estimated delay, at least 90 minutes. Eli looked at the clock. 7:08. 90 minutes in that temperature could become a sentence. Owen leaned forward from the back seat. "My mom has a red jacket." Ailey nodded. "I remember. She has a whistle." Nora added something. "She said she'd come back before we got scared." Owen looked at his sister. "You were already scared." "I was medium scared." Despite everything, Eli almost laughed. Then Owen asked the question Eli had hoped they would not ask. "Are you going to find her?" Eli looked at the windshield. He had 2 children in his vehicle. Leaving them alone was impossible. Taking them farther into the storm was worse. He told them he was getting help. For the next 20 minutes, help became a negotiation. County Command wanted Eli to remain at the lodge with the children. Dana argued that Rachel's last known location had to be searched immediately. Command repeated that conditions were unsafe. Dana asked whether a rescue team was moving. No. Then she asked whether anyone closer than Eli existed. No. The answer nobody wanted sat inside those 2 facts. At 7:31, headlights appeared below the lodge. A tracked maintenance vehicle climbed the service entrance. Dana was driving. Beside her sat one county rescue technician named Marcus Hale, part of a team that had been unable to bring their larger unit through the closed road. Dana had convinced Command to send Hale up in the lodge's tracked vehicle after Avalanche Patrol cleared only the first section. When Dana entered the lobby and saw the Bell children alive, she stopped moving. Nora recognized her. "You said we were on the bus." Dana's face went pale. Children often said the thing adults were most afraid to hear. Dana knelt. "I was wrong. No defense. No explanation. Just the truth." Owen looked away. Nora kept watching her. Dana's mistake had almost erased them from the search, but her choice to admit that mistake was about to matter. Hale unfolded a service map. The lower bridge crossed a drainage channel beneath the beginner slope. In summer, it carried maintenance carts. In winter, it was rarely used. The bridge itself was not their biggest concern. A steep bank above it had collected heavy, wind-loaded snow. Hale pointed to the drainage. "If they're at the bridge, we don't approach from above. We use the maintenance cut from the east side." Eli knew the cut. Dana knew it too. That was why both of them saw the problem. A fallen tree had blocked that route earlier. Eli remembered the radio call. Hale studied the map. Other access? Dana pointed to a utility corridor running behind an old storage building. Narrow. For the tracked vehicle? No. Hale looked at Eli. "You know it?" "I've walked it." Dana stared at him. Eli. He understood what she meant. His job had already been risked. His road home was closed. His daughter was waiting below. His custody review was approaching. He had found the children. The reasonable version of his responsibility could end there. Then Lucy called through Dana's satellite phone. Her voice was small and distorted. "Dad?" Eli stepped away from the others. "Hey, Dana said you found them." "I did. Are you coming down?" Eli looked at Hale spreading equipment across a table. "Not yet. Lucy was quiet. Eli hated the silence more than he would have hated anger. He said her name. She interrupted him. "Is somebody still waiting?" Eli closed his eyes. "Yes." "Then go." He opened them. "Lucy, you always tell me there's a difference between leaving and being late." That was something Claire used to say. Eli had repeated it so many times he had forgotten where it came from. Leaving was a choice. Being late meant you were still trying to come back. Lucy breathed into the phone. "Just be late, Dad." The call ended. Hale did not ask what she had said. He could see the answer in Eli's face. Dana stayed with Owen and Nora. Eli and Hale entered the utility corridor at 7:52. They moved slowly. The snow beyond the buildings was deeper than Eli expected. The wind had changed direction, filling depressions and stripping exposed ground. Hale carried the emergency gear. Ellie carried knowledge of the property. That difference mattered. A rescue was not one person being heroic. It was people bringing different useful things to the same problem. Halfway to the drainage, Hale stopped. A whistle. 3 short blasts. Then nothing. They waited. Again. 3 blasts. Rachel Bell. They moved toward the sound. Near the lower service bridge, they found the first sign of the accident. A broken railing. A maintenance sled on its side. Blood on the snow. Not much. Enough. Below the bridge, beneath a shallow overhang beside the drainage, someone had built a crude windbreak from the sled and a section of safety fencing. Rachel was inside. So was a teenage boy wearing a Calder Ridge kitchen jacket. His name was Mateo Ruiz, 17 years old. Dishwasher. Seasonal employee. During evacuation, Mateo had been sent from employee housing to help move supplies. When the blackout hit, he received 2 conflicting instructions. One told him to report to the buses. The other told him to secure propane valves at the maintenance shed. He chose the second. No one noticed he never returned. He slipped near the bridge and badly injured his leg. Rachel had heard him calling while trying to get her children toward the lodge. She could not carry him. So she made a choice. She walked Owen and Nora toward the warming hut. She repeated their emergency rules. Stay together. Get shelter. Leave a sign where people will look. Then she went back to Mateo. Rachel was not a doctor. She was a respiratory therapist who had worked hospital night shifts for 12 years. She knew enough to stop bleeding, keep Mateo warm, and understand that moving him carelessly could make his injuries worse. So she stayed. When Eli and Hale reached her, Rachel's red jacket was covered in ice. Her lips were pale, but she was conscious. Her first question was not about herself. "My kids?" Eli crouched. Safe. Rachel's entire body loosened. For 1 second, she looked like she might collapse from relief. Then she asked how they had been found. Eli could have given a long explanation. Instead, he said, "Your daughter left me a message." Rachel looked confused. "The backpack?" Eli nodded. Rachel started laughing. It came out half laugh, half sob. "I told her something big. I thought she'd leave a glove." The backpack had now changed meaning for the 3rd time. First mystery, then evidence. Now proof of trust passed from a mother to a child. A simple rule had crossed the storm without either of them knowing whether it would work. Hale examined Mateo. The boy needed a controlled evacuation. The wind made lifting him to the bridge dangerous. County Command sent more responders through the cleared eastern approach. For the next hour, the rescue became bigger than Eli. That mattered too. He had not come to replace professionals. He had come because he was there before they could be. When the team arrived, Eli moved aside and followed instructions. Rachel was assisted up first. Mateo was stabilized and brought out later. At 9:18, everyone reached the lodge. Eli checked the time and felt something inside him drop. The custody review was less than 12 hours away. The mountain road remained closed. His formal appointment was in a city 3 hours from the transfer station. He had no vehicle below. No clean clothes. Almost no sleep. Dana found him sitting alone near the dark fireplace. "You saved them." Eli shook his head. "The backpack saved the kids. Rachel saved Mateo. Hale got them out. You turned around. So did Rachel." Donna sat opposite him. Neither spoke for a moment. Then Dana placed the printed evacuation list on the table. "I marked their floor clear." Eli looked at her. Dana explained the chain. She had seen Rachel near the departure line. She assumed the family boarded. During the blackout, staff transferred that assumption into the digital record. The rebooted system then displayed the bells as passengers on Shuttle 2. Everyone trusted the clean screen more than the unfinished paper trail. Mateo had disappeared through a different crack. 2 supervisors gave conflicting instructions. Each believed the other had counted him. One emergency had produced 4 separate records. None matched reality. Dana stared at her handwriting. This can't happen again. Ellie was too tired to soften the answer. Then don't call it human error and move on. Dana looked up. Systems are made out of human decisions. That conversation changed what came next. By morning, Calder Ridge's owner had arrived at the lower command post and was already talking about insurance, liability, and official statements. His first instinct was to describe the incident as an unpredictable storm event. Dana refused. She gave county investigators the printed list. She gave them the reboot logs. She gave them her own written statement admitting she had cleared the bell room without driver confirmation. Then she recommended suspending Calder Ridge's digital evacuation procedure until every passenger status required 2 independent checks. One from the departure point, one from the driver. No batch clearing. No assumed boarding. No employee sent alone during evacuation without a named supervisor confirming return. The owner objected. Dana told him she would resign before signing the old procedure back into service. For the first time, the storm stopped being only about who had been rescued. It became about why they had needed rescuing. At 6:40 the next morning, the road reopened. Eli reached the transfer station shortly after 7. Lucy ran to him. She did not say anything at first. She wrapped both arms around his waist. Eli looked over her head and saw Lucy's grandmother, Carol Bennett, standing near the county bus. Carol had driven through the night when Dana contacted her. For 2 years, she and Eli had disagreed about almost everything involving Lucy. Carol believed Eli's unstable mountain schedule made life too uncertain. Eli believed Carol saw every hardship as proof that he was failing. The custody review had turned grief into paperwork. Neither of them liked what it had done. Carol looked at Eli's soaked clothes. "You're not making the hearing." Ellie nodded. "I know." Carol studied him. Then she looked at Lucy holding him. For once, there was no accusation in her face, only exhaustion, and a question both adults had avoided for years. What did protecting Lucy actually mean? Fun 4 quarters, family resolution, and philosophy. The custody review did not happen at 9. At 8:20, Carol called her attorney. She requested a postponement. Not because Eli had become a local hero. Carol refused to use that word. Not because one rescue proved someone was a good parent. It did not. She postponed the hearing because the storm forced all 3 of them to confront something they had been measuring badly. Carol had been measuring stability by schedules. Eli had been measuring love by sacrifice. Lucy had been living between those 2 definitions. That morning, sitting in a plastic chair at the county transfer station, Lucy finally told them what neither had asked directly. She did not want to move. She also did not want her grandmother to disappear from her life every time the adults argued. Eli listened. Carol listened. And for the first time, neither adult tried to translate Lucy's words into evidence for their side. 2 weeks later, the custody petition was withdrawn, not erased, replaced. Eli agreed that Lucy would spend longer school breaks with Carol instead of scattered weekends lost to mountain travel. Carol agreed to stop pursuing relocation unless Lucy's safety or schooling genuinely changed. Eli changed his work schedule. Not because the lodge forced him, because Lucy had been right about something else. He had spent years proving he would always come back. He had not spent enough time proving he could also be there before anyone needed to wonder. Calder Ridge changed too. Dana remained manager. The owner nearly fired her. County investigators advised him that firing the person who had documented the system failure would not make the report look better. That helped. But what protected Dana most was simpler. Every department head supported her. The new emergency procedure became known among employees as the 3-point check. A room could not be marked evacuated until the room was physically checked. A guest could not be marked boarded until a departure worker saw them enter a vehicle. And the driver had to confirm the final count before the status changed. Employees received individual accountability tags during emergencies so nobody could become Mateo again. A worker assumed safe because everyone thought someone else had counted him. Eli was offered a new position helping coordinate transportation safety. He accepted only after making one condition clear. He still wanted to drive. Dana asked why. Eli said a system designed from behind a desk eventually forgot what the road looked like. Owen and Nora Bell returned home with Rachel. Mateo spent several weeks recovering from surgery. Rachel visited him twice. The second time, she brought both children. Nora carried a new backpack. Blue this time. No silver stars. The purple backpack had been damaged by snow and road salt. Eli assumed it had been thrown away. 3 months later, a package arrived at Calder Ridge. Inside was the old backpack. Cleaned. Repaired. One torn strap had been stitched by hand. There was no dramatic letter. Just a small card from Nora. Mr. Ella. Mom says emergency things should go back where people can find them. So this is for your shuttle. Eli read the note twice. Then he placed the backpack beneath the second bench of Shuttle 4. Not as luggage, as an emergency kit. Inside were blankets, hand warmers, a flashlight, and printed cards teaching children what to do if separated during an evacuation. Stay together. Get shelter. Leave a sign where people will look. The backpack had become something else again. Not a clue, not evidence, not even a memory. A promise that one family's frightening night might make another child easier to find. In late spring, when the mountain roads were dry and the snow line had retreated toward the highest peaks, Eli drove Lucy home after school. They passed the county gate that had trapped him above the ridge that night. Lucy looked out the window. Were you scared? Eli considered lying. Parents often wanted children to believe courage felt clean. It did not. Yes, more scared about the storm or the hearing? Ellie smiled faintly. Both. Lucy thought about that. Would you still turn back? Eli looked at her. That question had followed him for months. People in town had asked it as praise. Reporters had asked it as if bravery were a personality test. The lodge owner had asked it privately, almost accusingly. Eli had never liked his answer, because the truth was less impressive than people wanted. He had not turned back because he knew he could save anyone. He had turned back because something did not make sense, and walking away would have required pretending he had not noticed. So he told Lucy, "I hope I'd check the backpack again." She frowned. "That's not the same question. It's the answer I have." Lucy accepted that. Children sometimes understood uncertainty better than adults. They drove another mile. Then Lucy asked whether they could stop for milkshakes. Eli said yes. That became the final consequence of the storm that mattered most to him. Not the newspaper article Dana framed in the staff room. Not the new job title. Not the postponed custody hearing. A Tuesday afternoon, his daughter beside him. No sirens. No deadline. No one missing. Just time that did not need to be rescued. There are moments when doing the right thing looks like certainty from the outside. Usually, it is nothing like that from within. It feels inconvenient. Expensive, poorly timed. It threatens plans you have spent years protecting. Eli never knew, when he touched that warm backpack, whether turning around would save anyone. He only knew that ignoring it would make the world easier for him and more dangerous for someone he could not see. Responsibility often begins there, not with confidence, but with attention. A family survives because someone notices what does not fit. A system improves because someone admits where it failed. And a child learns what courage means when the adults around her stop pretending that love is never afraid.